Okay, we are broadcasting and we will give it a few minutes for attendees to get logged in. All right, thank you for joining in for TAG's weekly Wednesday webinar. We're here every Wednesday, here to share tips and resources, information, demos, all in relation to Sage construction accounting software and the products that enhance your experience with those systems. So for today, we're going to be talking about TimberScan, specifically built for Sage 100 Contractor. We're fortunate today to have Leanne Oskanian to present to us a little bit of information about the benefits, capabilities, and how this integrates with your Sage accounting system. For now, we have everyone muted, but you are able to send in questions along the way through a chat box at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. We'll be able to answer these questions at the end of the webinar. And if you also want to save your questions until the end and you'd like to verbally ask the question, we can start dialogue by having you raise your hand through the Zoom meeting, and that will let us know that we should unmute your microphone, and we can have a question go back and forth with Leanne, our expert here. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it off to Leanne to talk a little bit more about TimberScan 100.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Leilani. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar here this morning. The focus of today's session is to introduce you all to TimberScan 100, or T100 as we call it. It's the industry-leading accounts payable automation software developed by us here at Core Associates. Excuse me. One of the appeals of T100, it's a very cost-effective yet powerful solution. So providing full document and content management capabilities for your company. So really going beyond just accounts payable invoices. You could think of TimberScan as a central repository to be able to manage all content for your business, project management documents, purchase orders, change orders, RFIs, submittals, personnel and HR related documents. So really anything that you want to be able to track and manage. It also provides routing and approval capability for all documents, again, not just AP invoices. It also offers exceptional integration to Sage 100 Contractor, and you'll see that when we head into the software here in just a few moments. It also gives you the ability to store documents in what we call packets. So with TimberScan, you can attach relating documents together. And as you go through the routing and approval process, you're building a packet of information that's then stored in both TimberScan as well as your Sage system. Right? TimberScan also provides a very user-friendly interface as well as a robust search engine to be able to access your documents quickly and efficiently. Since our session today is just a half hour, I'm going to try to keep it fairly high level and concentrate on the concepts and the technology and demonstrate how utilizing the AP automation and document management capabilities of T100, you can increase your productivity, gain visibility and control, and really migrate from old school methodology to highly efficient. Move away from paper file folders into an electronic and an automated environment. I want to briefly share some background on the evolution of TimberScan and Core Associates. The first version of TimberScan was developed in 2004 for Sage 300 CRE. It was Timberline at that time. In 2017, we expanded our product offerings, leveraging the success that we had with TimberScan 300, and we created a solution for Sage 100 Contractor. Today, the TimberScan suite of products, it's a best-in-breed, paper-free AP automation and document management system for Sage, and it's used by roughly 2,000 companies and about 30,000 users worldwide. All right, last slide before we head into the software. This is a schematic of the AP routing and approval workflow process. Just helps illustrate the workflow and how you could use TimberScan within your company. If we look over here on the left, the first step in the process is getting documents into the system. For documents that you're receiving in still hard copy in the mail, you can just take those and scan them in using a network copier or scanner. You can also just drag and drop documents individually. For those of you that have a centralized AP inbox setup where you're having your vendors or your subcontractors send their invoices, we also have an email monitoring tool that we can use that will watch that email address all day long. So as emails are coming in, we can automatically grab the attachments from those emails and then move those to a network folder that you specify. And then TimberScan can just connect to that network folder, and you can bring all of those invoices in at one time, or you can pick and choose or cherry pick certain ones that maybe you just want to bring in at that particular instance. The second step here is the data entry. And I'm going to pause here and just take a moment to talk about some exciting new enhancements that are coming. And this is based on feedback that we received from our customers as well as our Sage business partners. All right, so data entry is now going to be done within TimberScan 100, all right, and that's new. Previously, it was done within Sage 100 Contractor, and then the image from TimberScan was married to the transaction in Sage. Now, because this is a fairly significant enhancement, we wanted users to do some testing in addition to our own internal quality assurance department. So we have a number of early adopter testers that are testing the new data entry function now, and that testing is going to continue throughout the end of this year. In the first quarter of next year, we'll also be introducing optical character recognition, or OCR, capability for TimberScan 100. So you can significantly reduce your data entry time even more, and then continue to expand on those productivity gains that you'll realize by moving into a paper-free environment. Now, once your data entry is done, you're going to move into this routing and approval process. Right, so the system is going to automatically take those invoices and route them out for approval based on your business rules. So, you define how you want the system to work, and then the consultant will help you set that up as part of the implementation process. The other nice thing here is that your approvers don't have to come into the office to get their approvals done. They can do it from the field. Because TimberScan is a browser-based application, they can use a smartphone or a tablet and do those approvals remotely. Once you're done with your approval process, you can opt to have this final review step. And this is just an opportunity to have a final set of eyes on things to make sure that, all of your coding has been done. If you have any supporting documentation requirements, to make sure that those have been fulfilled. As you progress through this routing and approval process, you're building a packet of information. Now, at any point here, you can attach what we call supporting documents to that invoice, whether you want to attach purchase orders, maybe receiving tickets, insurance information, whatever you want to collect and manage relating to that invoice becomes part of that packet. And then the end result is this packet of information that's stored not only within TimberScan, but also within your Sage system. Now, once those invoices are approved, on the Sage side, you'll pay those invoices just as you do today. But once you remit payment for those, we do have a process in TimberScan to be able to take those checks. You can acquire them back into TimberScan, and then the system will ripple through and attach the check image to any of the invoices that it paid. So then you have one packet of information from the time you receive that invoice through to you pay it, all together in one place for easy access. Right, so the beauty of TimberScan is that in addition to being an electronic storage system and being able to get rid of all your filing cabinets, you have visibility to all of your invoices and documents and really have control over that approval process. All right, I'm going to head out of the PowerPoint here, and we're going to head into the software. All right, this here is the main screen of TimberScan. Now, because this is a browser-based application, all you need to access the system is internet access and a browser. Over here on the left, this is the tree menu. Okay, and we designed this intentionally to be similar to the Sage 100 Contractor look and feel, just to have some consistency between the applications. Anything that you need to access within TimberScan, you would do right from this menu here. Now, the first step here in the process is to go ahead and acquire some documents. Now, I'm going to go ahead here and just drag and drop a few from my desktop here. Now, I have to tell the system a data entry group. I have one set up here, but you could have as many of these as you want, and that's just going to tell the system where this batch of invoice is going to be sent for data entry. And I need to tell the system what I'm acquiring, and your choices are invoice, document, or check. So anything that's not an invoice or a check is going to fall into this document category. Invoices that you acquire are going to end up here in this AP invoice entry queue. Checks will go into this attached checks function. And then any other documents are going to go into this data entry queue. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and say we're acquiring some invoices. Once I've grabbed the documents, you can just hit continue. Now, if you're using the email monitoring, you can just use the select file option. And this is going to allow you to browse out to that network drive where you have those attachments going. And then you can either, highlight a group of them, pick and choose individual ones, and then hit open. And that's going to bring all of those documents here into the acquire screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. Now over here on the left, these are the thumbnails of all the pages that I just acquired into the system. Up here across the top, these are my various function options. So I have a number of annotation capabilities available to me. I can always add pages. If it was, scanned in maybe a little crooked or grainy, you can despeckle and deskew, things along those lines. Now, the two things I'm doing here are I'm sorting and ordering my pages, and I'm doing some quality control on the document. TimberScan will do some sorting and ordering for you. In this example here, that first document that I grabbed was a 2-page PDF. TimberScan interpreted that as one invoice with 2 pages. But if I click on the individual pages here, I can see I have invoice 393, and the second page here is actually invoice 394. So I have 2 separate invoices. Now to split that, all I do is just right click and say split here. And the third document was just a 1-page PDF. So TimberScan interpreted that as just 1 invoice. So pretty quick and easily able to, separate and sort those pages. Once I'm happy with the quality of my document, and if everything looks good, I've done my sorting and ordering, then I'm just going to go ahead and hit acquire. And the system's going to take that batch of invoices then and move it here to my AP invoice entry queue. So you can see that was at 2 previously, now it's at 5. All right, so this is the data entry. Now my data entry grid here is at the bottom, but I have some options on how I want to do my data entry. If you have a dual monitors in your AP department, you can break this into a separate screen. So you could have a full image of the invoice on one monitor and your data entry on a second screen. Alternately, if you use this change mode, you can do a side-by-side simulation. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the thumbnails just to give some more real estate here for the presentation. All right, so now I have my data entry on one side, my image on another. And I'm going to go ahead and use this power equipment rental invoice here. Now up here, I can just go ahead and start doing my data entry. If it's referencing a purchase order or subcontract, then you can just enter those there and you have lookups available to you. If it's just a regular vendor invoice here, you can look up by vendor number or just start typing and it's going to narrow down your search results. I'm going to select my vendor. And the same thing here for the job. If I know the job, I can just type it in, or I could use my lookups. Select a date here. Now, if you have some vendor defaults set up within Sage, those will also work here within TimberScan. So those will automatically default for you. Once I've done my header information, I'm going to come down here and enter my invoice lines. And again, you'll see information is going to default for me here. My description, quantity, I'm going to go ahead and enter my price. The account information. Now, once I've done my line item entry, I'm going to go ahead and enter my job cost information. And you can see how this, a lot of this is defaulting automatically for me based on my defaults that I have set up in the system. Once I've done my data entry, I also have some options available. If for some reason I wanted to put the invoice on hold, maybe I had a question for the vendor, I could do that and come back to it later. I could send an email from here and include the invoice as an attachment. I could add notes, view existing notes. But once I've done, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the save button. Now, because I'm using the Sage API for the integration or the application programmer interface, you're going to see the same warning messages that you would receive if you were entering an invoice within Sage. So in this case, it says my posting period is not for that current year. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And again, here I'm seeing one about I've exceeded my budgets and that. So I just wanted to illustrate that, like I said, those same messages, you'll receive those here in TimberScan as well. Once the invoice is saved, I'm going to be prompted to add supporting documents. Okay, so in this case, I have a purchase order. I can look at the image from here. And this list is generated from documents that were brought into the system earlier on. So when I set up the system, I define my document categories and my document types. And of those document types, you define the indexing information of how you want to store and track that information. So you might have vendor, job, those would be your indexes for certain documents. And then you can also note if you want it to be a supporting document. And it's that indexing information and whether or not the document is classified as a supporting document that drives what appears in this list. So based on the vendor and job combination that I entered on that invoice, this document popped up as potentially being a document I may want to attach. Right, now here you'll see I have a keep open option. So I can go ahead and select this to attach to this invoice. And if this invoice didn't completely fulfill that purchase order, maybe I had additional line items that still needed to be invoiced, I can keep it open and then also attach it to those other invoices as they come into the system. And so I'm going to go ahead and save the supporting document. Now, when I do that, if I come over here into Sage and I look at this, here's the invoice that I entered. If I go ahead and hit the paperclip option here, now I'm going to see my invoice that I just entered, and there's that supporting document, that purchase order. The other thing that'll happen, I don't have it configured here in my demo system, but the other thing that's going to happen is once that invoice is entered, it's going to change the status for you automatically as part of the workflow from open to review. And that's how on the Sage side, you know that that invoice is in the approval process. If you put it on, or if you rejected that, then it's going to go into the dispute mode. Once it goes all the way through the routing and approval process and is approved, it's going to automatically change that status for you back to opened so that you know that that invoice is ready to be paid. Okay. All right, next I wanted to take a look at some reports before we head into approval mode. Okay, there's a few standard reports available in the system. I'm just going to go ahead and touch on one here today in the interest of time, but we have the invoice status by user and one by job. And the reports show the same information, it's just the job one organizes everything by job or by project for you. So in this case, you know, if I want to keep track of who has what, how long they've had it, I can run this report and see all of my users and all of the invoices that they have routed to them. I can see when they were assigned, so I can see if this is something, you know, that one of the approvers has been sitting on for a while. I can link to the actual image of the invoice. So if I wanted to email it to somebody, I could do that. And if I navigate through the pages, so I can see here for user Leanne, I have 11 invoices and these are my total dollars. So you'd see a summary like that for all of your users, and you'd also see any rejected invoices. If you wanted to look at things in more of a dashboard view, we also have this workflow execution status dashboard. And this will show you not only invoices, but other documents that are out for approval. So in this case, I have some change orders and some drawings. And in the dashboard view here, I have flexibility over how I want to view the information. So I can add or remove columns. I can also do some filtering. If I wanted to, you know, maybe only see invoices for a particular job, I could do that. And then I also can group information. So here, just by dragging these headers up here, I can look at it, so by vendor number in that example and job number. Okay, and then I can see, like I said, always call up an image, the image of the invoice. I can view notes, add new notes. All right. Now, this here was more of your management view. As an individual user, I'm going to use this workflow task queue. And this is where I would go in to do my approvals. If I have a lot of documents that are in my queue here, now you can see here's the invoice that I just entered goes to the bottom, but you can use these sorting and filtering capabilities to narrow the list down. So if you only wanted to see, maybe change orders or drawings, I have a few here. Otherwise, you can look at all documents. And then you can also do some filtering if you wanted to just look at something maybe by a certain job number. Okay, see how the job gets highlighted here. So lots of flexibility from that standpoint. Now, as an approver here, I'm going to go ahead down to this invoice that I just entered into the system. On the right here, I have some high-level information about that invoice, the vendor number, the invoice date, the amount. I can also look at my AP lines. I can look at my job cost lines from here. So if I looked at my distributions and everything looked okay there, and I wanted to go ahead and approve it, I could approve from this screen. I could reject. If I reject it, I do have to put a reason why. If I want more information, then I can just use the execute option. And this is going to bring me into the detailed view. Over here on the right, I have my header information. Here I have my AP invoice lines. And then I have my job cost detail. As an approver, I could either update the cost code or the cost type. So in this case, right now it's charged to site work. But if I wanted to come in here and say, hey, this really should be part of the contingency. And if I go ahead and save that, that change is going to immediately update in Sage. So if I come back over here and I look at my job cost information, I can see now it's changed to contingency. So that updates in real time for you. Some other things I can do, I can always, look at my notes or my log here so I can see all of the history relating to this particular invoice. So this is a nice collaboration tool. You can see the coding value here, the change that was noted. I can email, I could add supporting documents at this point as well. But once I'm happy that, my coding's been done, everything looks okay, I would go ahead and hit approve. All right. We do have a mobile application. I'm not going to touch on that today. It's very similar here. It's just what we call a responsive user interface. So it will automatically resize based on the device that you're on. A few other things that I wanted to touch on. We have this search capability. As I mentioned, TimberScan is a complete document management system. So you can manage all content for your company in here. And when you store and manage documents, this is the search engine that you would use that looks across your entire repository of documents. You can do save searches if there's things that you're looking for all the time. So you could just come in here and select from a menu. Otherwise, you can pick certain categories and document types. Now, in the example of billing backup, this can be a really big time saver for you. If you have T&M or cost plus jobs where you need to produce backup for those billings, you can come in here and say, show me all of my, AP invoices, and you can do it for a specific job number here. You can also add date ranges. So if you only wanted to look at it for maybe the last month. And then when you search, now you're just going to see all of that AP, all the AP detail for this particular project for a date range. You can view the documents from here. But the really nice thing is you can go ahead and create this invoice report. And that's going to take all of those invoices and put it together in this nice report for me. And then I can send this report off, with my billing to my customer. So it's just going to take a minute here to gather all the information. There's quite a few invoices here. So I'm going to have my report. Here's the summary at the top of all of those invoices and my total. And then I have all of the actual images attached as well. I can also do some grouping. I can change the title. So if I wanted to say, you know, this is my billing backup report. And if I want to say for, you know, maybe for a certain job number, I can also do some grouping by cost code. So if this is maybe a schedule of values job, it'll group it by cost code for me. And then I can also exclude invoices as well. All right, so here's that report now grouped by cost code. And then my invoice images will follow. If you wanted to exclude certain invoices, maybe there's something in here that shouldn't be part of that billing backup, you can just come over here and click on, you know, invoices, and then that will remove them from the packet. All right, so this is a really, like I said, can be a huge time saver for you. You can also use this tool for, if you have auditors in-house, you can search by general ledger account. Very flexible as far as, you know, the conditioning here. I'll just pop in here just to give you an idea of the breadth here of what you can do. So these are all the fields that you can, you know, search by. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you real quick here, I know we're coming to the end of our time, but when you pay your invoices in Sage, I mentioned you could attach the checks, and this is how you would do that. So once you physically print your checks in Sage to pay those invoices, you'll come back over here and you'll acquire it, and you're going to select check as your image type. And then that batch is going to come down here into this attach checks function. So when you come in here, you're just going to select a batch of checks, the bank account, put your starting check number in, hit attach, and then TimberScan is going to ripple through the batch of checks that you just scanned, and it's going to attach the check image to any of the invoices that it paid. So in this case, it's just one invoice, but if this check paid 10 invoices, the system's going to attach this check image to all of those invoices. And then on the Sage side here, I'll show you an example here of one. Here we go. So this one here we can see was paid. If I click on the attachment, this will give you an idea of what it would look like. So here I have my invoice, my supporting document, and my check image. So you'd be able to see that same packet over in Sage as well. Okay, one last thing, and then we'll pause for some questions. Just to kind of peek under the hood a little bit here, I'll say, for the setup in the system, you have the document categories and document types, just to give you a little bit of background here on how you're going to set things up. Now, granted, the consultant will work with you to configure the system, but you're going to set up and define your categories, and then within a category, you're going to have types of documents that you want to track. So in this case, we have project management, we're tracking change orders, drawings, and a job checklist. If you go into the detail on these, okay, you define the fields that you want to index. So in this case, we're every time we acquire a change order, we have to put in the job number, the change order number, and the date. Right? The only field that's required is the job, but you could have all of these mandatory if you want. Then when you go to search for this document later, these are the key fields that you'll be able to work off of. Okay, but you could have as many of these here as you want, and these are lookups into your Sage system. You define which records in Sage you want it attached to. So in this case, it would go and attach to the job file, but you could attach it to other files in Sage as well. You define which users have access to this document type. So we have security by document category as well as document type. So especially handy in the case of like HR documents that are, you know, in many cases confidential. You could assign workflows to any document type, and you could also establish routing rules. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause and open it up for questions.
Okay, and as a reminder, if you'd like to type in your questions into the toolbar, you can do so in the Q&A chat box, or you can just simply chat your message there. You can also raise your hand if you have a more complex question that you'd like to verbally ask. And another reminder, this is being recorded, so we have this available as a recording. By the end of the day, it'll also be up on our YouTube channel if you'd like to refer back to it or share it with any of your team members. All right, so I don't see any questions coming in at this time, but of course, if you'd like to send us questions by email at a later time, feel free to do that. You can email tag@sales@teamtag.net. And if you'd like pricing or another demonstration, maybe something a little bit more tailored for your company, we're happy to do that as well. Thanks so much for joining. I hope this was helpful to everyone. Thank you, Leanne. This was a really great demonstration of some of the new features. So we'll see you next week for our next webinar next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.